Again, thanks for joining us. We have the platforms on Facebook. Join News on TV is a page on Facebook. Please get communicative as always. Send us those messages. We have a couple of topics or interesting subject matters we would want you to contribute to, and we'll get to relay some of those messages in the course of the program, the AM show, which is live on Join News on Multi TV. In the meantime, also, there's a short code 1760. As you get interactive, please make sure you also touch base with our channel on YouTube. It is My Joe Online. We have over 5,000 videos uploaded there and counting, and a lot more of you keep watching those videos just in case you've not been in a position to watch segments of the show, either because you're going out of home, you're heading to your office, going out of the office, etc. You get to watch later, and you get to make your comments as well on our Facebook page or any of the pages we have made available. Let me introduce my guest for the morning, the man in yellow. To my extreme left is Stephen Natubiga. He needs no introduction in some circles, but on this very platform, he represents the NDC. Well, on that very platform too, he did, right? He's a member of the NDC's communication team. He's also an entrepreneur, a businessman. And another entrepreneur and businessman, but was also a management person, is Eric Chum. He's a member of the NPP as well. Which other constituency do you belong to?
Chobu.
Chobu? Yes. Chobu Amasaman.
Well, it used to be Chobu Amasaman,
okay.
But
Chobu.
It's now Chobu. I'm actually the first vice chairman.
You're actually the first vice chairman of the Chobu Amasaman constituency?
Chobu constituency.
Chobu constituency of the NPP?
Yes.
That's a huge post. You are not a meaner person. You also hold a constituency post?
Branch executive.
Branch executive. Yes. Which
Binduri.
Binduri.
Yes.
The
great Binduri.
Yes, the great Binduri. Okay. And just yesterday afternoon, something interesting came up. Apparently, it was breaking all over. It was also at a point in time when the former flag bearer of the NPP, who's also vying for that very position, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, was making comments just to commence or mark his entry into the whole flag bearership race of the NPP. And Wilmer must refund monies. That's what's on the front page of the Ghanaian Times, but it was all over. Supreme Court orders landmark ruling, and I just want to read what the story says. And it says the Supreme Court, by unanimous decision, ordered businessman Alfred Agbesi Woyome to refund 51.2 million Ghana cedis to the states. That was on Tuesday, and the money was acquired illegally through judgment debt claims, according to the court ruling. It declared that he acquired the money out of an invalid and unconstitutional contract, and the court gave the order in a review application filed by Martin Amidio, former Attorney General and Minister of Justice. And following that also, we've had Woyome's representative come forward to say that they will still find avenues for redress as made available by Ghana Supreme Court statutes, etc. Stephen, what do you make of it?
Yes, thank you very much. I want to say good morning to the viewers and the listeners out there, and good morning to the first and second family. And happy Barakat Sallah to my Muslim brothers and sisters out there. I think, with no disrespect to the court, I appreciate the decision taken by the court. If a court takes a decision, who am I to say, to say they didn't take a good decision? But on the flip side of it, there was a contract. Somebody has to be held responsible. Wyoming did not just fall on the sky and saying, I'm a contractor, or I facilitated this, give me money. Somebody gave he and his cronies a contract. It is not the prerogative of an individual or a Ghanaian to say, the contract that you are awarding to me, did you take it through Parliament? Is this contract legitimate? So the secret ingredient that was missing in that, for the justices to take that decision, was it was invalid contract simply because it did not go through Parliament. So I think, who has to be held responsible? So I think, just as he has to pay the money back, other people has to be held responsible, because if he was a foreign contractor or a foreign facilitator in this country, because the international laws would have been giving that person, because even if you spend $1 of staying here to facilitate a contract, you get damages for it. So this is where we have to look at. We don't make such mistakes. Is the former president going to be called from the Parliament House to come and explain why such contract was awarded and then abrogated? Is the minister at that moment going to be responsible for, say, you caused financial loss? because it started somewhere. Somebody planted a seed and it grew to the extent that somebody benefited from it. So it's bigger than just saying the person. And having also said that, I think he has a constitutional right to also go back and appeal, if I'm not mistaken. And also, you know, we'll see how it goes. Yes, the court has ordered for the money to be paid. Once he exercises his rights as a Ghanaian going for the appeal, then what happens? Are they going, is he going to buy time? Are they going to subpoena certain people to come and testify whether legitimately a contract, an invalid or was awarded to somebody? And remember, the people that he represented, they got paid. MPP gave about $10 million in compensation under the table for those people to walk. He didn't benefit from. So these are all the questions that I think when he's appealing, but I think he has a right. He has a right to
well, all these you're raising were also raised in the court, and I believe, especially Eric, for an issue and a subject that has been of prominence and in the public discourse for a very long time. It's as if this was a long time in coming, so to speak.
Thank you. I also like to extend a good morning to my constituency, which is Trobu, and then the entire MPP family as a whole, and then of course our cherished viewers. It's quite strange that Stephen decided to go on that tangent, especially when we're talking about the Supreme Court. Now, it will be quite strange that, I mean, I've not had the time to go through the ruling.
The ruling in itself.
Yeah, but it would be quite strange that Woyomi's lawyers would not have basically preferred all of these arguments. And the truth of the matter is that the NDC government is a major, I mean, I'll call them, it's actually a protagonist in this particular Woyomi saga. And that's why, from the beginning, you actually had a deputy chief of staff coming on various platforms trying to defend this Woyomi saga. And we all know the role that the former Attorney General, Madam Betty Molded-Dusu, actually played in this whole saga. To the effect that there was the former president, Atta Mills, late, actually made input in this particular issue whereby...
Whether he gave an order or not.
He gave an order. There was an order. We all know that it's an open secret. And then even if you go back to the initial judgment, where the judges actually stated that pay Woyomi 17.2 million dollars or 70 cedis, and then hold it in a specific account until judgment is basically preferred, right? What happened? The Attorney General at that time goes ahead and makes full payment. And now, I mean, it's because, of course, I'm not a legal person. I don't really want to even go into the legalese of
correction.
No, let me finish my point. I don't want to go into the legalese of it. But you realize that this has been the character of this NDC government. And that's the reason why you can situate that with the reason why the TUC actually, in a very, very long time, has actually gone on the streets. Because the government has shown a total lack of goodwill. So that you can find money to pay Woyomi 51.2 million against the tacit orders of a court, right? And then you cannot find money for basic, essential things in this country.
So what is our priority in expenditure?
Exactly. And then if you go into the bigger scheme of judgment debts, I don't want to, I mean, if you go into the bigger scheme of things, this government in the last 4 years has paid well in excess over 1 billion cedis in judgment debts.
Oh, because they were ordered by the courts. Now listen, for the Woyomi subject, the case was taken to court. The Attorney General, for want of a better word, did not come to argue a case out in court. The court gave a judgment and said, well, you're free to go and have your claim.
But then there was
Granted, yes.
Yeah, there was a caveat to
Yes.
that particular judgment.
That you pay this,
and
then subsequently,
when it's actually determined that there was a contract or no, and then
otherwise you refund this
then
one or
there was
whatever.
another caveat that says that if it happens that Woyomi turns out that Woyomi doesn't have a contract, what happens? He pays the full amount back with interest. Right?
Yes.
Right.
Definitely.
And then, if you sort of link this to the criminal proceedings that's going on
in the High Court,
you realize the kind of commitment that is actually being shown by this particular government to actually get to the bottom of this Woyomi saga, right? To the fact that the office of the state attorneys don't turn up. And if you remember, there was an incident where 400,000 cedis, right, was paid into an account of an official of the Attorney General, Attorney General's office. 400,000 cedis. And the explanation was that it was a loan that was actually given to that particular individual. And these were individuals that were, at that particular time, offering advice, technical advice, to the then Attorney General. So it's an extremely murky situation, right? And I think it's imperative that this particular government shows some kind of respect and then goodwill and forthrightness to these people, the people of this country, by trying not to equalize and defend something as bad as
in your estimation, this is bad.
My brother,
I mean,
look, 90% of the judgment debts that we're paying today was caused by the MPP. From Isophoton, Waterville, and whatever. It was during...
Oh, well...
I'm trying to set the record straight.
Don't even go to Isophoton, because already we've had Martin Amidu go to court.
Yes.
And explicitly it's been stated by the judges of the court.
I'm trying to make a point here.
So how come
that the Isophoton payment should have been made in the first place?
How come you're in so much haste?
Okay, true.
Let
him make his
point. I'm trying to say, judgment debt is part and parcel of running of a nation.
Dubious judgment debt.
I'm saying judgment debt. It is left unto the court to decide whether it's dubious or not. What I'm trying to say, if you go to all over the world, it is part of it. Judgment that people look at it for just contract reasons. Even if a policeman abuses you, you go into court, you could go for all of it falls under. I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying anybody, whatever you do with government, all right, that one side or the other, you think you can always go to court for judgment. And but what I want my brother to, like the gallopers, NDC, I'm just trying to say some of these causes that he's pointing fingers at the NDC government. The gallop, you come to you take power for the fact that it's a previous government.
You mean African Automobile?
Yes, I'm just trying. You let the trucks, you let these 4x4 sit at the port.
And as a result of that, you decide you decide to, based on a court order, pay them compensation.
No, I'm saying to sit there for so long. Let's say if MPP had a contract with another company and goes out of power, NDC shouldn't say for the fact that whether it was legitimately written or illegitimately, it was a contract, because they were, if a president or an arm of government awards a contract, it's a legal listen. But all I'm trying to say is, yes, I appreciate the court taking that decision, because it's the court, with no disrespect. It's our money that I think if it's gone to the wrong hands, it has to be retrieved. But on the other side, for us not to have such problems or such judgment debts again,
then officials need to behave adequately and take right decisions when they're in office. But you do agree, but once the court has made a decision, of course, they will have a room for, is there an appeal?
Yes.
A review, so to speak, of the Supreme Court decision.
Yes, until all those is exhausted.
And you may go further and say you want to ask for a review, but the substantive of the case still remain, and the arguments still hold.
Yes.
That if you're in public office, you need to take very thoughtful decisions that are duly in the interests of the ordinary Ghanaian.
Yes, and remember, the judicial, he also won a judgment. Go get the money, and he won.
No, but there was
my brother, even though if there was a clause that if we find out later on that it is not like you have to pay back the money, let's assume the man has no penny now. He has no dime now.
He doesn't have...
No, I'm saying let's assume he has no money.
I thought you're telling us that
I'm saying let's assume he has no money. Then what? We should understand that they cannot turn around and say we are putting you in prison for this number of years for taking this amount of money. Are they going to auction his clothes or his car? how do we get the money back? So I'm saying from the president to the minister, all those, I mean, Kufuor's regime, down to the judiciary that gave him the privilege of all of those people have to also be accountable.
Well, the court looked through the subjects and the merits of the case. Now, if you're a public official, how do you have to behave in a way that appropriately upholds the interests of the citizens of the country, and that you're acting in the interest of the state?
Well, I feel that, I mean, that is a given, right? I'm a director of a couple of companies, and even that, it basically spells out specifically what you have to do as a director, right? Let alone being a public official. And as a patriot, if you find yourself in a position of authority, you have to behave in a very diligent manner, make sure that everything is actually done according to, and then you have the people of this country at heart. Now, I'll go back to the justification of this particular Wayomi saga, whereby there were public officials, there were ministers, people who were directly involved with the inception of this Wayomi saga. And it's quite, I mean, strange that as these whole issues started, in terms of Wayomi making a claim and all that, none of these officials were contacted, right? So we had Honorable Osafo Mafo, Obiamwa himself, and a few other people who were not contacted to find out exactly what transpired, right? So an Attorney General goes ahead, takes technical directives, so to speak, from people at the Attorney General's department, and makes a payment. And this is where I'm actually saying that the clause actually stated that the monies should be paid into a specific account, which should actually remain there until it's determined that there was a claim, there was a cause for a claim. That didn't happen. The late President, Professor Jonathan Mills, also directed that payments to Wayomi should be truncated for full investigations to be had. That was not adhered to, right? So what I'm saying is that you can justify all you want, right? The Supreme Court has made a definitive statement on this Wayomi saga. There was no contract, and we all know for a fact that there was no contract to start with, right? And I feel that it has to go beyond Wayomi, and all the people, the character, the protagonists involved, who made sure that this payment went to Wayomi against the directives of a court, against the directive of a sitting president, should be held accountable.
Okay, so let me just read by you, and this is where we'll end this very subject and go on to our next. It says, according to the panel, and there's a report on page 3 of the Daily Guide, according to the panel, the consent judgment which the former Attorney General Betty Modidusu made in favor of Wayomi should not have been entered or entertained at the High Court. It says, it's been quoted, a declaration that the conduct of the then Honorable Attorney General, and I'm sure they're referring to the former Attorney General, in this case in paying or ordering the payment by the Republic of Ghana of claims by the third respondent, and we all know who the third respondent is, and Astro Invest, that's the consortium that he represented, promised upon a purported foreign international financial engineering agreement arising out of the agreements dated blah 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 and other international business agreements arising out of the said governments or agreements with the government of Ghana, which were never laid before Parliament for approval, was inconsistent or is inconsistent with and in contravention of Article 181 subsection 5 of the 1992 Constitution, in terms of the interpretation already rendered by the ordinary bench, and is accordingly declared null, void, and without effect whatsoever, the court said. Okay, so that's where we summarily have to leave this very subject. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has been describing Mahama's government as a sinking ship. Now, we know that he started his campaign in earnest just to give the intent that he's contesting the flag bearership position of the MPP. And yesterday, according to some of the newspaper clippings, he seemed to have been taunting the the Mahama-led administration, and some of the words he used like gypsy, captain, this ship is sinking, captain, these seas are rough, oh yes, we gas tank almost empty, no electricity, oil pressure reading low, shall we abandon ship? And it was very interesting. What do you make of comments by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo? Yesterday's event seemed almost like he was campaigning for the presidency.
Well, of course, I mean, I would say that I'd wish Nana Addo well. Nana Addo is an illustrious son of this nation. He's, I would say, by far the most popular politician in this country as we speak. So basically, the fact that the other contestants, I'll say that I wish them not very well, and I hope that whatever it is that he requires would happen. But Nana said it all. Nana basically summed it up. He has been able to capture the mood of this nation. And you could just go down the streets and you realize that majority of Ghanaians, right, are suffering. They find the fact that this country, this government is bereft of ideas. The economy is in shambles. Our schools are in deplorable states. Typical example where heads of second cycle institutions are actually threatening to shut the schools come the first term, just because payments that are meant to feed-in grants that are meant to go to these students for these schools to run has not gone since first term, right? And you have issues where trainee nurses, for instance, for 2.5 years have not been paid. You have doctors that have been taken on for 18 months haven't been paid, right? There's electricity is extremely bad. We're still encountering this doom so situation. I can attest to the fact that it's gone down a little bit, but there are certain areas, and especially businesses in areas like Tema and all those places, who do not have enough electricity to actually do business. Last week, the ICU indicated that 20 businesses in the Tema enclave are threatening to shut down just because they don't have enough energy, right? And this is a government that promised the people of this country a better Ghana, and in effect, what they've done is basically giving us an extremely bitter
And Nana Addo
Ghana.
is the alternative?
Of course, I mean, the point is that the MPP is an alternative, and if Nana Addo emerges as a winner, right, he will take this country to a different level. He would extremely, I'll say, be more effective, more efficient, coupled with the fact that the MPP has the men and the people to basically move this country forward.
If the MPP say they have the men, and well, alternatively they are better than the NDC, just because we have a myriad of economic challenges, you should say perhaps they are more right than wrong, don't you think, Stephen?
Thank you very much, my brother. Before I take that question, nothing new Akufo-Addo said yesterday. And honestly, I would say it's one of the soap operas because I was privy to...
Well, yesterday's talk was just for the flag bearership race. So it was not for the national elections.
Busing people from corners to come and stand.
Is that what he did?
Yes, I'm privy to be a certain location that buses were being sent there to usher people there. Having said that, there's nothing new. He has said that he has never put it out there before. I was thinking he was going to surprise Ghanaians by saying, oh, I'm reaching out to Allen to consider being my running mate, or I'm stepping down to let Bawumia support Bawumia to go so that
why
to
not?
Allen.
Why not himself? The man says he's fit.
I'm saying
he has all the energy to go even campaign and become the president.
What is he hiding? Saying that he doesn't know how 17-year-old olds feel. What is he hiding? Besides the 17, I think they're not even qualified to vote. So what is he hiding? That people, age is not a problem in Ghana here. I don't think age is just a number. But if he's trying to put it out there how fit he is, how strong he is, I don't think it holds water. He had the opportunity to tell Ghanaians what this NDC government is doing, that if he becomes a president, he will do it different.
Yeah.
Because problems...
He said a lot of things yesterday.
No, but there's nothing like a perfect government. Kufuor's government, they had their pound of flesh. From the doomsaw to the water problems to whatever that is going on to all these demonstrations, they had it, you know, and it transformed. We have to appreciate that this president is is giving us a roadmap. Is putting this country. It takes a. We're not going hippic. This is a president that has transformed this country from the economic meltdown. There's changes. We are not disputing that there's no hardship in this country. We are not disputing that it's not a difficult time. But this is the time that Ghanaians have to show patriotism by understanding that it is the world political, or it is a world, it's a meltdown that we're going through, that it has happened before. Is the president of the day, is he solving the problems? Is he fixing it? Are we seeing any improvement? And I'm glad my brother sitting here has said he has seen an improvement in the electricity, in the Dumso, but not 100%. That means we're getting somewhere. Just as if you listen to the president in Kumasi on the day of the Salah, this is a man that spoke honesty from the bottom of his heart as a president. He told Ghanaians the hardship. And I think the TUC and Ghanaians should put the interest of the nation first and rally and stick behind this president, because the country is going through a difficult time and he needs their support. We know MPP or certain people behind this TUC demo. Believe me, it's a political...
you think it's a ploy?
Yes.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Do you think that with the current circumstances we have, and the challenges we're having with the economy,
yes,
if we have another government, they can't do a better job than the NDC government?
I don't think so.
Why?
Are they going...
Why do you draw those conclusions?
The reason why I'm saying that...
We've not had the alternative, so we have nothing to compare with.
Okay, this is the deal. We don't cut dollars. Ghana, we don't have control over the rising of the dollar. We have no control over it. When I mean, if BDC goes to buy oil, and let's say the world market is up at a particular price, Ghana cannot say we're cutting it down. There's no strategy for that. Okay? What I know, the interventions that this NDC government is doing, yes, there's room for improvement. If we take the subsidy out, we make sure there are more buses at every corner. We make sure that we give incentives more at the rural areas. By so doing, there is an opportunity cost. Do you want to go with the public, or you want to go with the metro?
All these that you think are good propositions? You should have given these advice.
These are all the roadmaps that we put, but we have to start. We have to start somewhere, which the government is doing.
The point is, I don't think for any student of economics, you can't say that a country within a certain jurisdiction doesn't have control as far as on inflation, the volatility of its currency, etc. Because there are certain variables that, based on the economic measures or the fiscal policies that you undertake, will tend to influence some of these variables. So, for example, we have huge trade deficits as far as we're concerned.
Okay.
Importation is always high.
Yes.
Our industries can't manufacture enough to meet demands, and so we have to go outside the country.
Now,
our laws, which would enable the local manufacturers and entrepreneurs to perform adequately on the local markets, are not good enough. We don't have consistent supply of energy, and so these are the factors that perhaps ultimately tend to influence how the cedi performs against the major international currencies.
Okay.
I mean, just on a hypothetical situation.
Give me just a minute to explain that. A population of 24 million, if I'm not mistaken, and about 2 million, if I'm not mistaken, are employed within within government, if I'm not mistaken.
2 million?
No, I'm just saying.
Okay. Let me just give you the statistics.
Yes.
According to the whole public sector, we have over just a little over 600,000 public sector workers.
Okay.
And they include even the ministers, the parliamentarians, and everybody.
Yes.
So just to give you what the statistics say, they're not 2 million.
I'm extending it to those, those that are providing certain essential services, like the contractors and that are benefiting under that directly. All falls under that. I summed it up, not those that are taking paycheck only from the government.
Right.
Now, what happens to the rest of the millions? They are self-employed. That is why government is trying to promote Made in Ghana. They are putting some restriction on certain things being imported into the country to help us. And also, the intervention programs that this NDC government is doing. The tax breaks on people that are establishing companies. And also, another problem that this government is doing in creating jobs is also reaching out to the private sector. They should inform government that these are the jobs that we have, so that if you go into school, you know that if you come out of the school, this is the
So Nanado is all wrong.
Nanado is all wrong.
Your 1 minute has been up longer. I think I gave you extra 3.
I mean, you see, listening to Stephen,
you like his comment?
Basically sums up why we are where we are today. Now, Stephen is giving the impression that as a government, they have lost total control of the economy.
Did he give that impression?
Yes, he did. He says that, if I'm paraphrasing him, he says that we do not have control over the dollar. We do. We do because if your government decides to spend, right, and they'll go into 12% deficit in 2012, and we are basically running the same, some probably in 2013, close to 8%, right, and transacts almost 40%. At the moment, the debt to GDP ratio is almost 40%, right? And we do not see any tangible infrastructure that this thing has been used for, this money has been used for. And we are still chasing after that, lows and lows and lows. Last week, for instance, before Parliament even rose, right, there were tons of loan agreements. And you ask yourself, what are we using these monies for? Right, and you have a central government and you have a Minister of Finance who are supposed to sit together and come up with fiscal policies to make sure that we arrest the depreciation of the city. And you sit here as a government communication person to say that we do not have control of the dollar. That's the reason why we are where we are today. And let's go back to the economy and things that you're saying about interventions. What interventions? The government, when the start of the CD started depreciating, decided to put $20 million into the economy. That was the first knee-jerk reaction, right? And where are we today? Today, they are trying to basically go back and review their own policies because the policies hasn't worked. The reason why we are where we are is because the economy has been managed woefully. And the government has basically lost total control over what's happening. And if Nanado says that we will do a better job as an MPP, he's right. Okay. Because there is, I'll give you some stuff.
I've heard many comments that that very phrase, government has lost total control, is just a political phrase that is used by the opposition.
No, it's not.
And critics.
It's not. But
just to belittle the efforts of the executive.
It's a political phrase.
What they are doing to resurrect the ailing economy.
Per what Stephen just said.
Economies go through challenges, don't they?
They do.
Eric?
They do. Right. But then you gave hope to the people. You put certain things in place to make sure that it gets back onto a certain footing. Do you understand now? If the city is depreciating, I'll tell you a thing. When the NPP was in power, the prices of crude oil rose up to $147.
Granted.
Right?
Yes.
Now, what's the price of crude oil today on the world market? It's hovering around 97, 96, thereabout.
Yeah, it depends on which of the crudes.
Exactly.
Some even
right.
100.
Now, how come that today we are paying more for fuel than we're paying for fuel when it was 147?
Oh, my brother.
It all stems down to the fact that our city has depreciated so low.
We have to take a lot more
cities to get dollars.
Exactly.
Go to London, price of fuel, it has increased. Go to US.
And if the price of fuel in Ghana today is higher than the price of fuel in the United States.
That is not true.
Yes.
That is not true.
Sure. Sure.
It is true.
Check your facts.
Check your facts.
No, wait. You get your point. You see, Eric, when we're making the argument, just putting aside politics, and do we acknowledge that perhaps government is making strenuous efforts to stem the tide?
Now,
other than just going politically on that very tangent.
Now, if government is making strenuous efforts to stem the tide, right, it has to be backed by the government's own actions. Right? So now this is a government that has shown, right, a penchant for making frivolous payments. Right? A penchant. And I'll take you back. It's not on the table, but you have sent contracts that happen on Asada, Jada, all these.
Those are just excuses you use all the time.
It's not excuses. Right? It's not excuses. If you can find 20 million Ghana cedis, right, to invest in a project, the guinea fowl project, for instance, and there's absolutely not a single guinea fowl to show for it. Right?
I don't think that's true.
That's not. And then monies are actually invested in planting of trees, and nobody takes care of it, and then the trees basically are all bent, right? you look at all these other issues and you ask yourself, is this government really interested in saving the economy, or they are interested in basically lining their own pockets? Because some of these deals, if you go back to the deals under JADA, for instance, whereby monies were expended to
so
people.
you're thinking that some of those decisions that were taken,
exactly my point.
You see, on Tuesday, I argued here that when you take the projects on the JIDA, or so to speak, NYEP, as it was started by the MPP, etc., these are not bad policies at all.
But
yes.
It's the management.
Okay, so you have a difficity with the management, but
exactly.
it doesn't mean as if that the projects are wrong.
The projects
but the
were
way you
not
put
wrong,
it is as if the projects are wrong.
As a country,
okay.
we have not benefited
now
from
the
any
political
of these projects.
season is almost starting. It's even just more than 2 years into the next election.
Okay.
The MPP by October, ending of October, would have elected the flag bearer. The heat really is going to be on the NDC,
yes.
especially also your president,
yes.
Our president,
yes.
John Dramani Mahama.
Yes, yes. My brother, before I trained there, I want us to wonder, the reason why I made mention of U.S. not being cheaper is because they have an intervention program that is going on. And the reason why here is expensive is government took all the good roads, the infrastructure at the rural areas. Those are the subsidy that government took up. But there's some intervention that the government, we should forget, not forget. My brother, let me go there. I'm trying to explain. That is why it's cheaper over there. And that is why here it's expensive.
But you do agree.
I do agree. But there's an intervention that government
we're talking about prices at the pumps.
Yes,
right?
But I'm trying to say government still spends a little bit of interventions here and there. If the BDCs go to buy the fuel and the exchange rate, let's say, is $3, and they go and the fuel, let's say, is $4. Government picks up what is up there, you know. So until 100% government pulls out, then we have more money to be able to develop this country. But having said that, my brother has to understand that unless he hasn't been to the villages and the rural areas, I don't know. Look, Ghana is not only the cities. Go to the other areas and see just a grader, bulldozer, grading a road means a lot to the people out there. Sinking 4,000 boreholes every year means a lot to the people out there. Chimp compounds, making sure that it compulsory no woman dies for just giving birth. Doesn't happen again in this country, means a plus. Building clinic,
So you're saying these efforts,
I'm saying,
are giving enough confidence to the grassroots people
throughout the whole country, okay?
But if the substantive don't seem to be enough to hold the economy, and you have the variables going up, and as a result of that, the rate at which people live is deteriorating.
Yes.
That's even more serious than saying that just grading and creating enough facilities as far as health is concerned, etc., would be more satisfying to the ordinary Ghanaian. Because ultimately, whatever happens at the top will trickle down and they'll have the
we are reaping what
well.
the MPP sowed. First of all, changing of our currency. If you look at it, I'm trying to. Okay, no, seriously. Okay, so it's part. Is there reaping or is it private? Because those who had the vision advised the then president that yes, the value to the dollar 10 years from. It's on record. It's on record.
All right.
10 years.
Your point has been made. Now, Mr. Chum, if the NDC and Professor John Evans at Mills, for which we had the current president who was a vice president, now the head of the economic management team. They achieved also single-digit inflation. The economy was doing so well. And now the president, just in his second year in his first term, economy is having difficulties. Why don't you think that there can be a turnaround? Why all of a sudden do you think that even though we're having these difficulties, nothing can be done at all?
Well, I mean, to start with, even the party itself, the NDC party, has actually lost faith in the government's
capability. In what way? They've not.
The commentators that have gone after the finance minister, for instance, they've made requests to the president to basically remove him.
But during the time of the MPP, there were concerns also raised by grassroots people of the party.
Let me make my point. Now, in terms of the fact that there's going to be a turnaround, honestly, I doubt, right? Because the government has shown absolutely no resolve whatsoever, and has not shown anything new. They are not thinking outside the box, right, to make sure that this economy is turned around. You look at, he was talking about, I want to go back to the redenomination of the cedi. Listen, you keep making all these, what do you call it, arguments, right? And it falls flat in the face of logic. At the point when the cedi was redenominated, what was the value of the cedi as compared to the dollar, right? And what was the inflation at that point? You understand? Now, over the period when the NDC took office, they had, I'll say, single-digit inflation. And we were warning them, and that is basically the repercussions that come in today, whereby contractors that were meant to be paid, all these statutory payments that were meant to be made, all these commitments that were meant to be made were not made at the time. Right. So there was an artificial, I'll say, glut, you understand? And then now it's the chickens have come home to roost. Now, if we start paying the contractors that we owe, right, typical example when you travel along the Sahom Suhum Road, for instance, that particular contractor is owed $60 million. That's the reason why the project is stalling. You understand what I'm saying? Now, all these things were factors in the reason, factored into the reason why we had those, quite deceptive inflationary figures. And now that it's actually coming home to roost, they are complaining about the fact that, because you've been in power for 6 years, and you're blaming the Kufuor government, as it sits now, for the wrongs that you've done the people of this country.
Mm. So steps being taken by government, you should be satisfied enough.
Yes.
They are not satisfied.
They are not satisfied.
But you are satisfied.
We are satisfied what government is doing. Is they, like I'm saying, turning the country around. We're doing it. The Dumso is 90% solved. The water problem is 70% solved.
Why are you getting the statistics?
My brother,
no, you don't. In research, we have observational research.
You're refusing to see. If you go to the rural areas and what have you, having said that, making sure that they increase more school uniforms, expansion of the school feeding, incentives given to the school, to the rural areas to encourage them to go to school, and then the gender side, the little amount of money, it means nothing, but in certain areas it's a lot of money. Like in my village, 1 cedi could buy a good decent meal that could buy you rice and that's
sure.
Yes, in Binduri, 1 cedi will buy a good decent meal with meat up to today.
2014.
Yes, my brother. In the rural
July.
Yes. In Binduri, Boko area, all those areas. So there are other areas that governments
in Binduri.
Yes.
Okay, please wrap up on this
and all that. So I think if they should take their time. The Senchi Forum, government is implemented. It's unfortunate that they were not part of it. So if they were part of it...
So there's hope?
There's hope for us.
So,
there's hope in our president.
Sorry, I can't give you a wrap-up comment on this subject. It's unfair on my part?
No, fine. So
okay, fine. That's okay. A senior statesman and career diplomat, KBS Sante, says Ghana's political leadership has lost focus and clear direction on how to develop the country. He added that our leaders are weak, have no sense of belonging, non-inspiring, and have no self-confidence. Much of them he blamed on the populace, whom he accused of not doing enough to bring the best from the leaders. And he was saying this as a guest on Dr. Kwesi Osei's Take on Multi-TV. It was aired over the weekend, as on Sunday. And also on the program was David Egbe, Executive Director of the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security. And the program, of course, was hosted by Dr. Kwesi Osei, a professor of history, philosophy, and political science at the Delaware State University in the United States of America. That's your... I'm trying to say the United States of America.
Yeah.
What can I say?
Yeah, United States of America.
In Ghana, there's a scare about cholera.
Ebola.
But even more scary is the subject of Ebola. Well, just as at Tuesday, at the La General Hospital alone, about 5 people were said to have died, and over 120 cholera cases have been reported. We're having difficulties dealing with cholera. How about Ebola? It's a concern for everybody. Do you think that our public health and state of awareness is enough to perhaps, as a state of readiness, be in this very position where we can say Ghana is ready to always fend off any outbreak?
I'd say that we need to do more. As to if we're ready, I'm not too sure, because like you said, I mean, in 2014, in this day and age, nobody should be dying of cholera, for instance. And if you have issues like that, it basically also draws us back to the issue of sanitation management. Issues about sanitation management, for instance, whereby we have the local authorities not being in full control of what happens in our markets, for instance, and the fact that, I don't know if we have, I mean, I remember when we were kids, we used to hear about the town council, for instance, and I'm not sure that happens anymore. But I think that we have to go back to the basics, educate our people, make them appreciate the fact that, I mean, like they say, cleanliness is next to godliness. And then we make sure we equip our health facilities, hospitals, clinics, and the like to basically stem the cholera. The Ebola is definitely a different matter altogether.
It's a different ballgame altogether.
I think that we have to sort of have a more concerted sub-regional...
Let's just talk on the cholera first and see what efforts we can make.
Yes, on the cholera, I mean, I'm glad that this is the only thing my brother, the MPP, hasn't tagged it to president's fault. But on the other side, it's something that we have to look at our environment the way we should blame ourselves, because cholera is avoidable if we take certain...
Just about sanitation.
Yes, like I know of a lady 2 days ago, a family friend, she was admitted at the hospital for cholera. I mean, she bought Indomie by the roadside, and she started having stomach ache and throwing up and running. You know, she went to the clinic, it was cholera. So this tells you sometimes the vulnerability of the sanitation department, which we call the sama-sama. They have to really clinch on people that are selling food by the gutters and at places that it's not decent. And also, I think the food and drug should also clinch on the type of water people use to cook the meal, where they even, if you look at where they even prepare the meat, certain area, you can see that there's a lot of health hazard that is going on. So I think that has to really be clinched on, and government has to also make sure that laws and rules and regulation is being clamped down, in the sense that permits that are being given to people to operate certain chop bars at certain locations has to be a no-no, you know, because like the Koli Lagoon, I'm giving an example if you see somebody selling food, and also, you know, you see people selling bullfruit and what have you, it's not, even especially by the road, they don't put them in bags. It's being exposed. If you want, they dip it in. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that we are the cause, and I think Ghanaians as a whole, we also have a responsibility of resisting to spend our money at areas that is not decent. This has nothing to do with government, but 90% falls on us. If we lead a very clean life, you know, bathing and looking good doesn't mean cleanliness. You know, the environment, how
it's also crucial.
Yes, it's also crucial and very important. And at our hospitals too, you know, in terms of not being contagious, certain things has to be cleaned, and you know, all that. So we all owe cholera, a war to cholera, of making sure that it's eradicated in Ghana. Well,
Eric, you made a point about this day and age, etc. The point is, do you think that our public health directorates across all the regions of the health service are working hard enough? Each year, we're always told from April, oh, the rains are setting in. I remember some few weeks ago, I think just less than 2 months ago, the Ghana Health Service and the Accra Region Director for Health, etc., gave a warning that people should be careful, etc. Should we be more proactive than just always being reactive? It's as if we're reacting to a certain situation, even though each year we see it coming.
Well, it actually beggars belief that we're still talking about cholera. And the fact is that we know how cholera is actually transmitted. It's contaminated food. Now, in these areas where this happens, what have we done in the past to make sure that we stem this in? So you go to these places, and unfortunately there are even no toilet facilities, right? So they basically, what we call free range along the coast, put them in bags and throw them about and all that. So I think that we need to basically tackle the issue from the basics And it happens in areas where we have majority of the people are poor, they can afford all of these things.
Dense population.
Densely populated, right? And you're talking about the fact that the sanitation issue is also extremely important, right? Now, the city authorities have to be up and doing, right? Recently, we had issues with even the Oli compost plant in Greater Accra being shut down because, then again, comes back to government. Government has refused or has been reluctant to pay them for 2 years.
Government has not.
Has not, right? For 2 years.
No reluctant.
Well, like it's all semantics. But so if you go back, the garbage was sitting in front of my house for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You understand what I'm saying? So I think that city authorities, the health authorities, the National Commission for Civic Education, for instance, should take some of these things up. Go directly to the people, the local level, explain some of these things in the local language. Because I think that we have a tendency of making announcements in English, for instance, and not a majority of people would appreciate what is said. So go down, get agents on the ground to make sure that the education is actually gone down very well with the people. And then we start being proactive, which means that as far as maybe January, December, before the rains even set in April and May and June, thereabouts, we are educating these people. We are making sure that we are clearing the areas we look at. Because if you look at cases, right, I mean, I'm not an expert in public health, but I can assure you that if you go down to the cases, you realize that every year the cholera comes from certain parts of the country. So, of course, you have to have measures.
We always have it from Jamestown, Mamobi, those areas.
Exactly. So
and so those polyclinics or the health centers that are always equipped during the period. Yeah. It's as if we're waiting for the cases to come. Now, you're saying that it's also because of people's attitude. Yeah. How well, then, can we complement that by trying to diffuse or change people's attitudes with perhaps a lot more public awareness or sensitization?
Yes, and that is where the sanitation
subjects
comes in, which we locally we call them sama. You know, growing up,
the public health inspectors.
Yes, we call them sama. Growing up as a child, if our mother had that sama in the area, the house is clean, all the, I mean, the commode, the what we,
Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, what, you know, growing up, they call it kuraba, all will be hidden. You know, because you go to some homes, it's just sitting down, they've not cleaned it, fleas all over it, and it goes back to our food setting. So I think they have to go to the olden days that people were even summoned. When I mean, you know, they take people to the set. There was a special called Mesama, take you there. So people,
you're summoned to the court.
Yes,
and you pay a fine.
They were fined. So I think that has to be clinched more, and people, you know, paid certain amount of money. That will deter people from taking those actions. And people that are selling food at places that it's uncalled for, and also people that issue licenses, because some 9 out of 10, some of the officials, they don't go to inspect where the individual is. There's difference between taking permit to operate a business than food and drug. I think they have to also come and inspect and give you whether it's a local shop, but it shouldn't be only a restaurant that you are giving that licenses. Those that are selling by the roadside, like you go to our community, the Zongo areas and what have you, they have to have that license up there that maybe they've gone through certain training through the food and drug, that this is how you keep the place clean. And those kiosks that they've also done by the gutters, how they can prevent fleas from the gutters going in there to contaminate the food, and where people should say, all those has to be taken into consideration, so that if I'm Amina and I wake up one morning and I can cook rice and stew, shouldn't just cook it and go and sit by the roadside and start selling. From the point of how I wash my rice, from the point of where I get my meat, even before I boil the meat, the fleas that sit on it, how to make sure that it's well washed before it goes into, and at what point do you call meat cooked, or you know, there are certain viruses. So all these has to be taken into consideration. So it doesn't only fall on, it also falls on certain department that government has put those silos out there, that they have a responsibility of making sure that these are avoided.
Well, somehow, some force has to be applied.
Yes.
Somebody has to take responsibility. The point is, which institutions then do we need to tax? Because we keep talking each year, and I remember in my years of practice as a media person, I mean, each year we talk about this. We pay lip service. Which institutions do we need to hold by the scruff of the neck and say, you should be responsible for this, and at the end of the period, if this is not achieved, you should be made answerable to?
Yes, I think the Ministry of Health will make sure, because every district or every municipal assembly, they answer to the minister when it comes to health. There's a sector that is underneath there, which is answers to the minister on that sector. Once that is, you tell all the AMAs, bring them together, make sure your sanitary inspectors, they do their work, and they also, so that if anything goes wrong on certain, at a particular district or an area, the Ministry of Health has the right to summon that mayor with the people that are involved, come and explain what went down, and people, when people are being punished, then they sit up.
Okay, who should be responsible for then?
I think that the onus actually lies on the local authorities. You understand? We need to be able to get into the habit of basically decentralizing. I think that it's been a talk shop when it comes to decentralization. And if we do that, we also basically have to equip them, resource them, right? Now, I mean, it's always politics, and I'll come back to the fact that district assemblies...
Statutory payments are not
being made. They don't have the resources to go. They have, basically their lenders are up in arms trying to basically close some of these district assemblies, for instance. Now, when it happens like that, then sanitation becomes the least of their worries, right? So I think that it's imperative that we resource them adequately. We put the right kind of people there, right? Because I worry. I mean, and it's for me, it's more of a personal thing. I'm passionate about the fact that we have done a great disservice, especially to the people in our rural areas, right? This government keeps talking about the rural areas, for instance, whereby basic amenities, things that would make you and I feel just comfortable enough in these harsh economic conditions are just not there. Just because government has refused or has not made payments to these district assemblies.
Stephen is lying. He feels that you're being mischievous.
No, I'm not being mischievous.
I would have loved him to mention just one rural area that he knows besides Accra.
I'm not. Well, I come from a village called Abompe in the eastern region.
Okay.
Right. And I can tell you for a fact that I live in Tantra Hills, and about 70% of the roads in Tantra Hills, which is Accra, are unmotorable.
Now, let's not go to the other problems we have. Now, Ebola, just more recently, across West Africa, we've had over 400 people dying. Just more recently in Nigeria, there was a Liberian administrator, etc., and he came in not too long after died. We even had a suspected case here until later it was refuted that, of course, he did not contract the ailment or whatever it is. It's getting more scary by the day. Now, more worrying for Ghanaians that perhaps our borders are more porous. We're told that we have 42 border entries. Only 4 are adequately secured as far as public health is concerned to be able to detect or even detect whatever suspicion there are. The rest 38 are free for all. Everybody comes and goes. Are you worried like any other Ghanaian?
I am worried. And I think that then again it comes to the issue of being proactive. Now, as it stands now, I think that even our health centers, hospitals, clinics should be sort of put in some kind of urgency, some kind of readiness mode, right, where you probably have rooms already allocated and people having an understanding of exactly what to do when a suspected case like that is brought to the place. Now, these are things that needs to be done now, right? Because, of course, like you said, even when they come through the regular entry points, so the person might be carrying it, and you never know. They'll just use our public healthcare system or private, whatever it is, and then they'll come into contact with Ghanaians. So we have to be proactive about it. Now, I think somewhere when the ECOWAS summit was held a few weeks ago, right, Nigeria basically committed a certain amount, I think $3 million, to fight the Ebola scare, right? And the thinking was that the other governments should also follow suit, so that I think I read a report whereby the indication is that we need close to about $10 million to be able to eradicate the disease. And since the last 2 weeks, I haven't heard anything in terms of from the other ECOWAS leaders in terms of what support.
Well, we're told that Nigeria gave at least
3 million.
Yes.
Right.
3.5.
Well,
3.5, yeah.
whatever. But then the truth of the matter is that what are we doing proactively to make sure that we eradicate Ebola? Because if it happens in the, I mean, I hear it's in Lagos as we speak, right? And the kind of interaction that we have with our
Well, because the
Nigerian
gentleman had contact with even top officials, they were just
Exactly.
not mean people.
Exactly. So I think that
And,
it's imperative that we act really quick and be ready, right? I mean, I heard another commentator saying that, oh, we have to be decorous and show, no, we shouldn't show panic because otherwise it creates a chaotic situation. But I think that in this particular case, it's okay to panic, right? So that we do the right thing, so that when it happens, we are ready for it.
Yes, I think I agree with my brother here. We have to sit up. If you look at, I was surprised when one of the immigration officials on TV, you know, mentioning the number of entrance points that we have, both the legal and the illegal way of coming into the country. That I think out of 60-something entry points throughout the whole country, if I'm not mistaken, it's only, I think he said, about 4 or 5 that are ready for, you know, with certain equipment or gear ready to handle the Ebola. And it's one of the scariest diseases that we know. It's supposed to live in only animals, not humans. But once you catch it, and a doctor, I was listening to BBC, a doctor died of it in somewhere in Africa,
Guinea.
in Guinea. So
in Sierra Leone also.
In Sierra Leone.
I hear he's a chief medical person who is really at the front of fighting the disease.
Yes, and then if you look at
his nurses died.
Yes.
Has the doctor also died?
He died.
He has eventually died.
Yes, and then the statistics of people that died or are contaminated with Sierra Leone, Guinea, and all those countries, once upon a time, they've all been there. So I think it's a scary, and some of us live, if you look at Binduri, we go.
You don't live in Binduri. Don't bring Binduri.
No, I go. I'm always in Binduri. I mean, I'm always there.
When was
I
the last
go there
time
a
you were
lot.
there?
Oh, I just came back from Salah. You know, I'm always there with my people. I mean, I have nowhere than Binduri. And we closer to Burkina Faso, where we grew up in Boku. We closer to Burkina Faso and Togo, all those areas, border town. So we some of us are scared that when it comes in, looking at the flow, that we cross their play and come back in the evening, you know, and it's a very scary thing that I think the health authorities should take it very seriously. We shouldn't wait to fight it. We should prevent
we hope
it
that
and curtail it.
we hope that something will be done about it.
Yes.
There's this thing that my director says I should take a look at before I go, and my director Fred is a very humble guy, always giving me tips when I'm doing that. He talks about apparently Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has been given enormous support by members of parliament. And Nita that is the honorable member for Bimbala, has been on air talking a lot about it, and even I think they had a formal event, etc. And a former general secretary of the NPP, who's also a spokesperson for Mr. Alan Chamantin, one of the 7 aspirants. Of course, they've gone through vetting to be trimmed to 5. He's not too happy. He's incensed, and especially saying the 107 members of parliament openly declaring support flout regulations of the NPP.
Well, I think that it's basically the interpretation of the MPP constitution.
What's your interpretation of that very regulation of the NPP?
I mean, of course, it's in the constitution. I think that it states. I'm not exactly sure what it says.
It says
but
that
basically
MPs
says that executives. I think that officials of the party should not show.
And members of parliament state that specifically or categorically.
Right. But then this is politics, you understand? And I mean, I think that this is something that will be extremely difficult to regulate. Now, what I would suggest and plead is that some of these things should be done with a bit more, I'll say, respect to probably the other contestants, you understand? But I mean, honestly speaking, it will be extremely difficult to, because I mean, you always...
To hold anybody back. And say they shouldn't support Nana Addo.
Yes, of course, because you sort of draw or tap into the support, the network that you have within a certain environment. So if they're parliamentarians, they're constituent
executives... I'm surprised at you. You are supporting flouting of the constitution of the MP.
No,
that's what you're saying.
I'm not. What I'm saying is that, right, it's in the constitution, all right.
Yes.
Right. Now, what does public display of support mean? Public display of support means that...
Not public display. Public affection, display, and utterance.
Yes. Now,
of support for somebody.
I appreciate.
And the Constitution explicitly states that if you're a member of parliament, you're executive of the MPP, etc., you don't.
I appreciate. But what I'm saying is that in actually trying to sort of regulate that, or
practically it will be difficult.
It will be impossible.
Okay.
Because, right, people would have their preferences every time, right? And then, so if the person doesn't really state explicitly that they support you, but then they're probably doing stuff, probably in the background, supporting the candidate. I mean, so I think that it's
you're
something
being
that
diplomatic. You're trying to be Dominic Nittiwo was not diplomatic.
Yeah, I think that.
Yes.
Let me make
You're
my
diplomatic.
point on this.
Okay.
I think that probably what we have to do, and I think that the Constitution is always a live document. It's something that we can always look at, and then probably going forward, we have to look into making sure we put in statutes that it can probably be enforced. Because for me, from where I sit, I find it extremely difficult to, I mean, even comprehend how we are going to enforce that. And
you're a vice chairperson of the party for constituency.
Yeah, the responsibility falls on individual executives and officials and parliamentarians to be circumspect.
Okay.
My brother, politically,
you have a minute after.
Yes, anybody could come out and say, I'm supporting the presidential candidate or particular candidate. But it depends on the seat that you're sitting on. It's dangerous for members of parliament coming out to declare their intention for one particular candidate in a political party. It's not showing...
Why is it dangerous?
Because the reason is, if you're a member of parliament, you represent all the rank and file of the community. And it also narrows down to your party that you become the leader of that particular party. If you pick a particular candidate...
It's as if you're speaking for all of them.
Yes.
And not all of them will be...
Then you lose control of certain people that would have said, look, let's smoke a piece, let's make sure that at the end of the day, how do we bring the people together? So I think if MPP, they have their law says that members of parliament or certain executives shouldn't declare, I think they should do what they've done to Reku Brobe. They should set an example. Even though it's not my party, but I think that we learn from them. We are one when it comes to, you know, and I wouldn't want to see members of parliament openly in my political, in NDC, coming out openly to endorse even John Mahama. It's dangerous for our party. So I think they have to be given the free hands. They should all go and test the waters, whoever wins. You know, that is where you can bring people together. The crack that...
You like doing a lot of observational research. By your observation,
yes.
Who will win the flag bearership?
By my observation, there's a 50-50 catch, because the dangerousness of it is the chairman that they have, the seat that he's sitting on, knowing very well that the jacket that he's wearing, you know, how he was groomed, how, you know, the gloves that he's wearing. So it's dangerous for our
That's it for our comment. Where you're going, I think I don't like. Stephen Atubiga is a member of the NDC and also belongs to the constituency Binduri.
Incoming MP for Binduri.
He likes going there often. He's aspiring to contest the primaries as a member of parliament. And
I lost by 2 votes.
Okay, so
is that not illegal? Because I'm sure there's a sitting MP. And as
an individual, you can declare your intent.
I'm not carrying myself as a candidate.
Yeah.
I'm an
as an individual, you can declare your intent. I think that you even have an intention too. I think so, right? You are vice chairperson of the MPP for Trobu.
Yes.
Okay. And you too, you would want to aspire to political office one day.
One day, of course. I mean, and it has to be within...
When would that be?
It has to be within the confines of our constitution.
Okay.
And I'm sure.
So you're waiting for that time to be ripe.
Exactly.
Okay. Eric Chum is also a member of the MPP, and he is a management person or consultant and a businessman, entrepreneur. The two of them actually are. They fend for themselves, look after people, pay people. Okay. He's also aspiring into political office on behalf of the MPP as well.
I am in political office already.
Public political office. All right. And so we've been talking about lots of things. Next up will be Jennifer Jane Asante speaking to a pastor and also a motivational speaker and a leadership person. They're speaking on leadership and what leaders need to do to get to people, speak to people, and walk the talk for the needs of the people as well. So a lot of leadership talk next with JJA.